Okay, so y'all, we're going to talk a little bit about the nuke mode of Twisted Metal. The idea here is we wanted to bring more class-based play, team tactics, more depth, more strategy to the franchise. Twisted's always been, we've always thought of it as a fighting game in cars, and sort of Mortal Kombat meets Unreal Tournament has always been sort of the log line back in the day. And that still exists, from our team death matches on the show floor to our death match to variations on those modes. To other modes that we'll be unveiling throughout the year. We're absolutely going to be, paying respect to that aspect of the series. But we wanted to bring a mode into play that really allowed players to bring their buddies online, use headsets, build parties, build clans, getting down to sort of which cars you bring into the specific mode, sort of planning out before you even jump into the mode, and sort of make sure that that aspect of online gameplay was taken care of as well. So, if you weren't at the press conference, or if you were, I'm going to give a very, very fast refresher of what this mode is. But the main purpose of today is to dive a little bit deeper into how the various vehicles really promote this specific mode. So this is our city level, and if you look around, you see these giant faction statues. Online play in Twisted Metal is all about faction versus faction. So we've got, in this particular demo, we've got the clowns fighting the dolls. So here's the doll face statue that's being carried through the level on a massive helicopter transport. Across the level, we see Sweet Tooth statue that's being carried in the same way. They're always in motion, always moving through the level. Some levels will have moving statues, some will have stationary. This one obviously has moving. And the goal of the mode is to bring the enemy statue down before they do the same to you. And the way you do it is you have to find the enemy faction leader in the level. I'll take you over to where Sweet Tooth is. So Sweet Tooth is their faction leader. He's manning a gun turret over here. And across the way, we have Dollface, who is manning, she's on my team, and she is manning the my team's turret. Okay, and you also have missile launchers. So once you grab the enemy leader, you bring them to a missile launcher. Each team has their own missile launcher. There are also moving missile launchers in the level, and the host can, there's one moving over there. So the host can basically set up a game that has only moving missile launchers, a mix of missile launchers, or just pure stationary. And if you keep the enemy leader in the perimeter, you'll charge the missile launcher, you'll earn a missile launch, you'll launch the missile into the statue. So that's kind of the high concept of the level. And let me kind of change cars here and show you guys how some of the cars come into play with this mode. So this is the car we call Roadboat. And I will bring Roadboat over to show you some of the defensive capabilities of this vehicle. Look at the God mode real quick. All the faction leaders have different access points. So 2 or 3 ways to get to them. Okay, here's our team downstairs that's kind of waiting. Everybody's kind of in a position for this demo. We're kind of scripted it out. Otherwise, it's a little too hard to kind of show you all the pieces at a time. It's kind of chaotic. All right, so here's one access route to Dollface. Okay, so here she is. She's manning my team's turret. My special, let me pause for a minute and talk about that. So every car, we really do want to feel like a fighting character in a fighting game. We've wanted that from the very beginning of Twisted Metal. And so we're sort of amplifying that idea here. So besides the special, every car having their own special, every car having different handling, different armor, we're adding to that this time. So every car, for example, has a different carrying capacity based on size. We have our traditional energy attacks down here. We have an EMP blast that will freeze an enemy in place. We have shields. We also have mines that you can drop. This energy fills up and recharges over time. Depending on the vehicle that you've chosen, that energy fills at a different speed. Turbo drains at a different speed depending on the car you've chosen. And also your radar signature stays on longer or shorter for the enemy depending on the vehicle you've chosen. So I'm going to go ahead. These are all of our pickups. We're in God mode, so we have them all. These are scattered around the level. I'm going to go ahead and drop my remote bomb. Let me cue these guys off down here. They're going to come up and try to steal my faction leader. The remote bomb's a great defensive weapon, which I'll show you. So there's their cue. Let's see if they see it. Okay, here comes Crazy 8. I'm going to drop the remote bomb back up. And it cooks. And the longer it cooks, the more damage it does, to the point that you can take somebody out pretty much one hit. Okay, so he's dead now. And now I'm going to use my magnet, which is my special. And before he's actually able to take my leader, I can suck him on my car. And then I can charge it up and toss him away. And the magnet's also a really good chase weapon, so I'm going to let this guy take my leader. And so, okay, I wasn't able to defend my boss or my faction leader, so I'm going to go and basically try to... Don't do the rooftops, Carlos. Let's see if I can stop him. Now he's... There he goes. He's going to try to get to a missile launcher before I can stop him. Let's see if I can get him. Now, if we weren't doing a demo, I'd be trying to shoot him and kill him, and he'd be firing backwards at me and dropping mines and rear fires, but I kind of told him to take it easy. Alright, so you can see Dollface is being dragged behind his car. Where are you going? Alright, there he goes. Alright, so he's going for a mobile launcher. You know, and for the sake of brevity, I'm going to go ahead and not even let him try to launch a missile. You'll see that in a minute. It looks like he's going to make it anyway. And I'm going to activate my magnet. And before he can even get to the launcher... There you go. Alright. That didn't work out. I think he got away there. God damn it, Carlos. He's like our lead tester. He's really good. Okay, so I can bring him onto the car, and then I could have rammed him into the wall, but he exploded. So you can basically, magnet guys onto your car, you can use the 6-axis to basically ram them into the wall and do triple damage to them that way as well. Rowboat's also a really good offensive vehicle. I'm going to go up right now, and I'm going to try to steal the enemy leader from the other team. Alright, this is one of my favorite levels because there's a lot of verticality, there's a lot of interiors to our buildings. So we can start down in the basement of this skyscraper and go all the way to the top, which is where their faction leader is. Okay, but I got a guy up here clearly who's kind of guarding the entrance, so I'm going to back up. And all the special weapons have alt fire, so if I activate the alt fire, you'll notice the magnet rotates. And then now the magnet becomes, instead of a magnet, it becomes sort of a ricochet weapon that I can bounce against the wall and damage him without taking any damage myself. And this is also, a lot of the levels have really great defensive areas from across the level. So I'm going to do this before I go steal the leader. I can go up here, a little secret area, and I can bring up my sniper rifle. I notice across the level, there's Dollface, who I need to defend. There's someone, Dark Q's coming to try to get her. So I activate my sniper. The longer I keep my sniper rifle on the enemy, the more damage it does, to the point that I can ultimately get a headshot and take someone out from all the way across the level. And it's kind of, you know, we originally were like doing real sniper fire or real sniper mechanics with vehicles, but when you're going 180 miles an hour, it becomes really challenging to the point that you can't do it. Okay, so here's the enemy leader. I'm going to steal them. Or steal him. So he's now behind my car. And I'm going to go try to launch a missile for my team. Alright, so you can stay in the perimeter long enough, you'll bring the launcher to life. Now the thing is, when you're in this perimeter, you lose all your ability to fire, which again is why team play is really important. Your teammates have to protect you as long as this circle is filling up and this missile launcher is preparing to launch. Again, different cars have different speeds that determine how fast their launcher charges up. But so Rowboat's ready to sacrifice. I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice the leader. He gets tossed in, your team earns a missile. And now I can fly into the enemy. However, the enemy characters are now able to attack me as well. If my team doesn't defend me, it's pretty easy to bring a missile out of the sky. Okay, let me show you a couple of other characters and how they affect this level. So we have our character named Vermin, who's an exterminator vehicle. And his special is sort of a straight-up missile. He shoots the rat. Alright, so he shoots his rat off of his car like a missile. But if you notice, the enemy's about to launch, or my team's about to launch their rocket. Let's see where they are. Oh, he's actually already got the missile in the sky. Okay. So this guy's shooting my my team's missile down, so I can launch the rat rocket and control it. You basically go in and stop this guy from shooting my team's missile down. You can also use him to shoot the missile down. If they've launched against my team, he'll go in the air and take the missile down. Another vehicle that does that really well, which I'll show you now, is our helicopter. All right, so the helicopter obviously is really good for playing offense, defense with the Gatling gun that you guys may have seen on the show floor. But he's also great at grabbing some swarmers and going up into the air and trying to shoot down the enemy missile. Let's see where they're about to launch. There you go. All right, so this is the enemy who's about to launch the missile. All right, so it's off in the air. You can basically hunt it down and chase it before it gets to your statue. Oh, I guess I shot it down. That was good. Okay. You can also use the helicopter. It has a magnet, which you can use to pick your buddies up and help them bypass areas of the level. And if you lose the faction leader while you're driving, he respawns, much like Capture the Flag. So it's really important to kind of get your teammate to the faction leader with as little damage as possible. And then he can pick up the faction leader and I can carry him. I can also pick up the faction leader. I can carry him to the launcher. The problem is, oops. Well, he should be dangling, but he's not. The problem is basically we impose an artificial ceiling on the faction leader when you're carrying him with the helicopter. And I'm in God mode. There we go. So basically, the helicopter has the weakest armor of the game, and if you're trying to transport the faction leader to the launcher, you're probably going to get killed. So he's a really good opener to bring someone to the faction leader, but he's not so good actually carrying them to the launcher. And I'll show you a couple other quick vehicles and sort of how they function. All right, so we've got our tow truck, which has a really good sort of offensive weapon. He spawns a taxi behind him. Textures are dropping out. Sorry about that, y'all. Here's a mobile. So you can toss these like missiles. But he's also really good. He has a defensive weapon where you can drop health for your faction into the level. And depending on if you use one special weapon, the special weapons recharge over time, or you use two, one does 30% health. This will give you 100% health and also fill up all of your team's energy. Our motorcycle is probably the most deadly vehicle. It's also the weakest. It's got a chainsaw that you can fire. You can also pop a wheelie with this character, and if you do that with your chainsaw, you can drag the chainsaw along the ground, heat it up, and then it becomes a flaming chainsaw that does triple damage. And this is another good sort of straight-up offensive character. You've got an ambulance with his patient in the back that can be fired off as a missile. And then you can control him as well. So that'll do about 20 hit points of damage. If you control him, you can actually do a direct hit and steer him into an enemy. And direct hits do about 80 hit points, or you can detonate it whenever you want to get a proximity damage that does about half of that. And then our last car, we're going to be introducing more cars and more vehicles obviously throughout the year, but our last vehicle for E3 is our sort of straight up battler. He's got a charged up machine gun that you can fire forward or back. And then the alt fire for that is a Sorry to keep you jumping. This is how we go into God mode. We're having a bug where we can't get in and out of it. And then you can also charge up your machine gun. It's sort of a little bit of a risk-reward mini-game. And you earn missiles as well as machine guns. And it does a significant amount of damage. So basically that's the high concept of nuke mode. As we introduce more vehicles, you'll see that each vehicle is designed to bring more strategy, more tactics into the mode, as well as straight-up deathmatch and other modes that we'll reveal throughout the year. So that's nuke, and if you guys have any questions about Twisted Metal in general or this mode, I'm happy to answer them.
David, hi. What happens when you capture an enemy leader and that car is destroyed? Does that enemy leader just instantly transport back?
Yeah, it's like Capture the Flag, or certain Capture the Flag mode, so he'll respawn back, which is why, again, team play is so important, because if you capture him, you want to have buddies around you with either the helicopter magnet or the Terra Nova magnet or the health that the tow truck can drop in order to keep him healthy and keep him alive long enough to launch that missile.
And since there have been so many Twisted Metal games, how many of the vehicles are you bringing from previous games into this one? How many new ones are you bringing?
Well, it's kind of different in that our vehicles are, every faction can drive every vehicle. So you can have Dollface driving the ice cream truck that transforms into a giant robot, or you can have Sweet Tooth riding the motorcycle, where usually that's been sort of the home of Mr. Grimm, sort of the Grim Reaper character. So we're bringing back, I think, probably maybe 8 characters or 8 vehicle characters, like Mr. Grimm's motorcycle, Sweet Tooth's ice cream truck, that fans of the series will recognize, and then we're bringing brand new characters into the series, like the ambulance that you saw, Talon, who's the helicopter that you saw as well.
There's not a count on it right now. It's still
yeah, I think we're shooting for sort of a launch of like maybe 12 to 16 vehicles, and out of those maybe 40% or 50% will be returning characters. Hey.
Can you tell us a bit about what you're doing for single player? Is there some sort of campaign with progression?
Yeah, we can't go into details because they didn't want to go into it at E3, but there's definitely a single player, there's progression, there's stories that we're actually writing right now and beginning to production right now, and they're really, really, you know, I mean, I think they're really twisted and fun, but we'll see what you guys think. But yeah, that's there. So, yeah.
How does this sit as far as tone goes between, like, traditional old school Twisted Metal and black?
It's not black. We're shooting for a T-rated title. It's definitely, the way I've been thinking about it is kind of like especially, and this comes through more in the weapons and in the stories, but it's kind of like anything that could air at like 8 or 9 o'clock television is okay for us. So we're shooting for, like, you know, edgy Twilight Zone stories and edgy Twilight Zone vibe versus the dark depression that we did in black. And it's not as light and frothy as sort of TM2 that was very cartoony and comic booky. So somewhere in the middle.
So everyone's not a serial killer?
There are some serial killers, but there's the 8 o'clock, you know, CBS serial killer, and then there's the HBO serial killer. We're doing the CBS 8 o'clock serial killer.
Will you be? Do you know yet if you'll be including bot support?
Bot support?
Like, can someone set up a multiplayer game and populate it with AI players?
I don't think so, not at the moment. I mean, we're definitely going to have a single player, and we're going to have a co-op, and we're going to have the ability to kind of go on and have a great single player experience. But I don't think we're planning on just like a practice multiplayer round with bots. No. Cool. Anybody else?
Can we expect a lot of sort of hidden stuff, like you mentioned, sort of mine and freeze way in some of the past games that we've done through in commands, and also there's the whole thing about, you know, one sectors and to blow up the statue of the Eiffel Tower, even, you know, like creating new parts. Right. Is there going to be a lot of that kind of stuff?
There's going to be that kind of stuff. How much is sort of is TBD. But I mean, that the vibe, the team that, you know, made all the earlier Twisted Metals, we're back making this one, and so that kind of twisted humor and secrets, that's absolutely in the game. How much of it is, because a lot of that tends to happen later in production. You see how much memory you have left. You're like, ooh, I have an idea, let's do this, and there's either memory for it or there's not, but we're certainly shooting for that in all of our levels.
I was about to say, with the Blu-ray disc, it seems you'll have a lot of those to stuff in.
Well, it's not what's on the disc, it's what can fit in RAM. So you can fit it all on the disc, but if you can't load it into the level, you know, our cars go so fast and our levels are so big that it's kind of hard to stream the level in real time. We're streaming a little bit, but we can't stream as much as a game like, you know, God of War, which is constantly streaming because your character's moving relatively slow. Yes, there'll be 2 to 4 player split screen. There'll be more than just deathmatch. There'll be a number of different modes in the local player as well. But the high concept for us is that I love the promise of online gaming. I don't like a lot of online games because the pacing is so quick. I step out of a bunker, I get shot in the head, it's done. I respawn, I got to do it again. I need to feel more of a relationship with the people I'm playing against. And so Scott Campbell, who runs the company, is also co-director of the title. We're like, how do we create an online game that allows you to feel that same camaraderie and relationships that you can form when you're sitting on the couch playing split screen? And so a lot of the ideas is chases where you're chasing for health or you're chasing for a certain weapon, or you and I scrap and I'm able to survive, and then we still have that relationship where you're hunting for me through the level. We really want to bring that online, and online up until this point for me is I haven't had that experience because you get hit. There's such low hit points on human characters, but with vehicles, 150 hit points, we can actually create that relationship. At least we're trying to.
Are you talking at all about any other maps or environments that we'll see aside from this?
We have the suburb level on the floor, and then we have this, and we have really. I mean, I love the levels, but you know how it is. They want to dole the information. They want to kind of drip feed it throughout the year. But yeah, we definitely have a lot more levels, and variations on the levels. So when the player gets the disc, there should be a number of battlegrounds based on probably 8 to 10 overall levels, and then various ways we chop those levels up depending on numbers of players and things like that. So.
And will they be the same environments in single player?
Yes.
What are you calling this level, sir?
I'm calling it whatever this guy who raised his hand.
Do you have any-
I'm just giving you shit. I'm sorry. Don't I sound like a smarmy teacher? Oh my God, you're right. Okay.
Do you have any persistence or progression in the online multiplayer?
We do. It ain't Call of Duty, Call of Duty. When you say Call of Duty with a microphone, it's not like you're saying duty. But it's not that. I mean, it's definitely, our goal is to sort of, launch the franchise again for players with the absolute best Twisted Metal experience we can, and we want persistence. We want to give you a reason to rank up, but the biggest issue for us is balance, and we want to make sure that, you don't upgrade your car to a point that it totally screws up, how you fight with other people. We look at Street Fighter 4 as a better inspiration for our online than, say, Modern Warfare 2, because it's still skill versus skill. And obviously, I mean, I love Modern Warfare 2, but there's a lot of balance that gets thrown off a little bit as I rank up and maybe you don't, or I make choices and you don't. And so it really is more trying to kind of keep that pure. But yes, there will be a persistence and there will be a ranking up. I'm sorry I interrupted your question being smarmy, but
I was just curious what the name of this level was.
we don't know yet. It's our kind of city rundown slum area. We will have some name, but we haven't come up with it yet. It's depending on the mode. It's 1 versus 1 up to 16 players. So you can go on and just play one guy, or you can play up to 16 depending on what the mode is. What else? Yeah.
I'd like to follow up on what the gentleman here asked about. In the previous Twisted Metals, you would have the freezing and the EMP bursts, and they were based on combos. They were very tricky and very skill-based, and reminded me a lot of fighting games.
Yeah.
Is that still how you want to build those powers into the game, or do you have any intention to sort of streamline those?
It's much simpler now because basically it's up, down, left, right. It's no more Street Fighter up, left, left. It's basically pushing up, you get a freeze or an EMP. Pushing right's a shield. Pushing left, you drop a mine, and pushing down is a rear fire if that weapon fires from the rear. Anybody else?
Is that the D-pad or the analog?
That's the D-pad. Nope.
I noticed that you mentioned it's faction-based now. It's like Dollface's faction will be several characters related to Dollface.
Right.
And would that mean, how many, not counting vehicles, how many characters do you expect there to be as a result?
That gets into single-player details because the online is faction and the single-player is individual characters that go through stories. And so they won't let me really talk about the specifics of that, so sorry. Okay.
So Sweet Tooth's been the icon of the series for a long time, and Dollface was just, I believe she was just introduced in Black, right?
Yes.
What made you decide to use kind of her character as an opposing faction?
I think it was just sort of visual pop. I mean, I like the way she looks. There's this weird kind of thing about masked and Twisted Metal, whether it's Mr. Grimm or Dollface or Sweet Tooth, and it still feels twisted. I mean, the original version of this game, which I'm sure will release some concept art, really was much more how Kellen's the art director. I don't know how you describe it, but it was much more urban and Midnight Club. So I mean, none of the crazy characters were there. They were kind of much more human, much more normal. And so as we went through production, we kind of got our Twisted vibe back. And as we did, Dollface just seemed to be kind of one of the creepiest characters that made sense in this battle. So,
Since any faction can drive any vehicle, is there any reason to pick a specific faction other than preference?
No. Okay. Again, we had planned on that, and then we worried that somebody would come online and be stuck on, say, the Dollface faction, which maybe their health doesn't, or not their health, but their turbo doesn't regenerate faster, but their armor has a +1 variable, and it seemed unfair. So balance is really important to us. Anybody else? Okay. Cool. Thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it.
Thank you.